the idea of progress, women in the 1960s. To illustrate the notion, the idea of progress, and especially women in the 1960s, we'll talk about the film Made in Dagenham, directed by William Ivory in 2010. First, let me give a definition of progress. Progress is what makes people's lives better. Progress helps people live better off, have more money, socially and economically speaking. And particularly social progress means less gender discrimination. It also means more equality between people, and in this case, between men and women. So we'll talk about the 1960s and how women had the liberation movement in the 1960s in the UK. We'll try to answer the following problematics. Was the 1960s decade synonymous with progress for women in the UK? First, we'll talk about the women's liberation movement. In this film, it's the story of Rita O'Grady, who is a machinist working at the Ford factory in Dagenham. And like her colleagues, she's very upset by the lack of consideration from the hierarchy. And so because there is a salary gap and a lack of consideration from the men working at the Ford factory, women decide to go on strike and protest against discrimination and the lack of salary. But their fight is not taken seriously. When they decide to stop working at the Ford factory, men think that this strike will end soon and that just telling them they should get back to work would be enough. But little by little, and as the strike goes on, they get media coverage. The press gets much interest in covering this story at Dagenham in the north of England. And the turning point happens when there is a meeting with Barbara Castle, who was at the time the Ministry of State appointed by Prime Minister Wilson. And so Rita O'Grady goes to see Barbara Castle in order to negotiate some act, some law to get more money and be considered and treated equally as men. So we've seen that this women's liberation movement happening in Dagenham at the end of the 1960s was a movement initiated by Rita O'Grady at the Ford factory, and that little by little they get media coverage, and so they advance towards social progress, which leads me to my second part, social progress towards gender equality. So Rita O'Grady and her colleagues ask for equal pay for equal work. What they want is to get the same salary as men and be considered equally. But the government doesn't seem to be ready, and Barbara Castle tells them that if they pass the law, the Lords will kick up a fuss. So what Rita says to Barbara Castle is that they absolutely need some promises. And also during the film, Rita goes to the trade union conference and she delivers a very moving speech addressing them and telling them that the fight is not just a fight about women, but it's a global fight, and that men should also get involved in order to defend the claims, in order to defend women's positions and be treated equally and get the same salary for the same work. And so there is more legitimacy happening as men start to support women. During the meeting, Barbara Castle proposes Rita and her colleagues to get 75% of the men's income, but Rita says that it is not enough and that she'd really like to get 90% of the men's income. And so this happening at the end of the 1960s, in 1968 more precisely, will end up in the Equal Pay Act in 1970, which is a law passed by Parliament. So we can see through these two parts that in 1968, and through the movie based on a true story made in Dagenham, Rita O'Grady and her colleagues at the Ford factory helped women get more income, and so through their protests they managed to get social progress. But still today the Equality Act was passed in the UK in 2010, but after so much debate and so many laws passed for gender equality, today women still earn 9.5% less than men.